Hello and welcome to the first part in this sunset tutorial, and we're starting off with ultramarine blue. Use it in tubes. You buy it in tubes. I find it's freer just figuring out where I'm going to paint down to with the blue. Plenty of fresh water. My trusty hake brush, medium hake, and we're going to make the wash before I wet the paper, so I'm using the wash to wet the paper basically. You can see I've already got a sketch down. It's a basic sketch of the horizon from where I live near Kinmel Bay, Towyn in North Wales. There's some stunning sunsets and sunrises at the moment, and this particular one is some very high clouds going off into the distance that I want to portray, or attempt to, just using nice free and easy strokes. It's a big piece of paper, this, at 2016 inches, so there's plenty of colour made up. Trying to keep it as straight as possible, just adding a bit more water. And that's where I figure I'll stop the blue. This bears no resemblance to the finished picture at this stage. We're just getting the colour down. Taking off the excess there with tissue. Now I'm cleaning my brush, just putting some clean water where that line of blue ends, just so it's not too hard a line. If you get a hard dry line, it tends to show through at the end. Because it's such a big picture, I've got two or three plates on the go. I don't want them mixing too much at this stage. So this is raw sienna. Winsor & Newton, student colours by the way. These are about a third the price of professional colours. Personally, I've always used them to do portraits or anything. Now and again I buy some artist grade, you know, if I want a particular effect, but my 7, 8, 9 colour palette is plenty. Now what I'm doing here is making sure, you see how the paper's started to cockle. It's well fixed down as you can see, but I'm just making sure it goes left to right and doesn't puddle in the valleys where it's cockling. So let's make up a nice basic raw sienna wash. Again, plenty of colour down. This time I'm starting at the hillside, just trying to get a nice accurate line there. Once that's down, I can go back into the left and right rhythm. The beauty of going big like this, you can be free, more free with a big brush. Little jerky movements you can see. I'm just moving bits of dust and hairs that might drop into it. See, I'm just now drying the brush, the hake brush, with 2 fingers while I'm doing, or allowing the paint to dry, letting it run down one way and then the other way. so up and down. I'm leaving this, so it's puddling there on the horizon. We don't want that to be a harsh line, so again straight away I've made it flow upwards and left to right again by keeping it moving like this. And like I say, I'm filming this process for you just so you can see, you know, if somebody tells you just keep it moving and then half an hour later they show you their wash and your wash, you wonder what all the big difference is when you've done exactly the same thing. It's because they've been moving it around. I know it's not very exciting. Personally though, I do like watching the the paint dry, as they say. I like seeing how the textures occur on the paper. This paper is £140 Waterford paper. Quite heavy, and it's cold pressed. Now I've never used cold pressed paper apart from the last painting I did, and I quite like it. It's still got a texture and it behaves really quite well. It straightens out nicely, you know, and dries when it dries. Right, so where are we up to? We've got the first two washes down. They're drying nice and smoothly, as you can see. Now I'm trying something else again here. It's a natural sponge, and like I said earlier, this specific, well, you've seen the finished picture. The clouds are kind of whitish clouds coming from the sunset itself, and overhead they're getting bigger and bigger as they come closer, creating movement. And I just had a thought that this natural sponge might just do the job. Seems to be doing it quite nicely. I'm trying to make these clouds at the top bigger, as though they're coming over your head, you know, and you look up. Gives it depth and movement. So it's doing the job quite well. I've got to say, while I was doing it, I wasn't convinced it was doing anything. Obviously the angle I was looking at it. But there's the perspective, the idea of it going off from where the sun is. Now I've gone back to dry tissue, and I think it's probably the best thing still. But looking at the finished picture in front of me while I'm doing this commentary, the clouds I did with the sponge are quite nicely shaped. Right, back to the hake, just taking out the excess water, just trying to fluff up a few of the clouds a bit more. Back to my blue, and it's time to start increasing the depth of the blue. Still just ultramarine blue, that's all we're using, but because we're putting it onto the first wash, it'll look darker, and I'm mixing more colour. So this stage again, it's about getting more colour on the page rather than worrying about what it looks like. And I'm not trying too hard to get cloud shapes. We'll do that as it dries. Still a big sort of division of the top half and the bottom half. Now I've got a wet. See, I'm dragging them along the lines of the perspective. If we think of the sun as being just to the left of middle, and if you think of that as your vanishing point, all your lines go towards the sun. Ish. There's no hard and fast rule on that. But when you're walking around, you know, if you look upwards, you see a different sky than straight in front of you. A lot of people don't tend to do that. Like walking up a street with all the facades of the buildings above. If you take photographs and say to somebody, where's that? A lot of people don't know because they never look up. It's all about observation, and skies are no different. This series I'm working on, I'm learning things after 30 odd years. Just checking how we're going with that raw sienna on the bottom. Still quite wet, as you can see by the reflections. Now this is a wet piece of wet tissue. Rather than take all the moisture out, this will just take a bit of the colour and fuzz the edges. A lot of beginning artists are quite surprised when I do demos, live demos. They're quite surprised how little brushwork's involved and other things. You know, you're always looking for something else that'll give you texture. Not always a brush. I think people sometimes get frustrated that they don't have to paint everything. You'll see as this develops, a lot of textures will appear that I haven't really done much to paint. It's all happened because of the water reacting. Right now I've got some Payne's Grey now, which I'm mixing in there. Payne's Grey is actually lamp black and ultramarine, so it blends really nicely together. And that shows you now what I mean with the perspective. That's quite an obvious line now, isn't it? Going off into the distance, over our heads really. Keeping it moving. Very important to keep doing this for the bottom wash as well as the sky that's going on. See how that all alters in the way it looks because it's mingled a bit. No editing there at all, that altered in that few seconds. Right, I'm bringing in some more clean water here. This is a number 6 round brush. It's a bristly brush, quite abrasive. This is, so not only am I adding clean water, I'm just blending the harsh lines. The clouds will go even fluffier. And it will bleach. It's Payne's Grey and Ultramarine. Clean water bleaches. It's all hit and miss a lot. You know, this part of the sky. Just be careful you don't overwork it. Right, let's bring in another colour, which will be lemon yellow. Quite a lot, because we're going to be using quite a lot. Now it's still damp on this raw sienna. I just want to put a slight touch of blue on this low down horizon. What I'm doing there is I'm just dabbing it off the land mass, you know, just stopping it being too wet around the horizon line, because that'll become too harsh, you know, if too much colour gathers in that area. So I'm just making it a bit fuzzy, really. Now, nice bright wash of lemon yellow. And I'm putting this in the area where I kind of estimate that the sun is at its brightest. Once again, if we think just left of centre as where the sun is, probably just gone behind there. It's just gone down, and the rays are coming from underneath the horizon, if you like. So it's a particular time. There's only a few seconds when any part of a sunset or sunrise exists. So a lot of it you're kind of making up. I'm just now taking a little bit of time going over the line of the land and the sea. I'm using dry tissue stretched into kind of sausage shapes to get the effects of long, low-lying clouds in the distance. Basically taking out the yellow where I don't particularly want it to be, where I want a nice light area could possibly be later on. But everything in a sunset, really, or sunrise, everything is open to change later on down the line. Now I'm just taking out the harsh line where it joins the blue. It's just a personal thing. I don't like harsh particularly harsh lines in my watercolours, you know, the free and easy ones. Back to my blue plate. And now we're getting some alizarin crimson. Bright red if you like. I'm just weighing up where the dark clouds are going to be. So I said I'm leaving in the drying times, so you get some idea of how long you should be taking on things. People tend to panic, you know, half an hour's gone by, 10 minutes, whatever. Now we've got some red on our hake. I'm using it just to kind of get an idea of where I want the red clouds to be, or the red influence. See that point there, I want it to be following the perspective ultimately at the end. Again, get it moving. A lot of lines in the sky, see, that's the way I want it all to go. So it's a case of standing it up and waiting. Just managing anything that's untoward. I'm totally engaged in my painting now, so unfortunately I didn't film the painting straight on, but you get an idea what I'm doing. All the paint is all running down one way, and it's going to find its own level. That's what water does, you know, it runs down straight. Now we're coming towards the end of this lesson, so I'll continue it. It's 25 minutes long, would you believe? I shall see you in part 2. See you soon.